Hey everybody, I'm Darren Starr, and on this week's Form Fix video, we're going to be looking at some squat basics. Stay tuned. So when I talk about squat basics, what I really mean is we're going to be looking at breaking down how to get set up for a proper squat, how to know when you've achieved the proper depth, the kind of warm-ups that we need to think about in advance of actually starting the lift, and also how to make sure that we've got good forward and back balance, like posterior, anterior balance. We've got the weight shifted forward or back sufficiently. So I recorded myself in the gym yesterday going over a couple of things that I use as cueing devices and as a progression technique for those that are just starting out. Maybe you're having trouble squatting to depth, or you're squatting too deep and you don't know it. So we're going to look at all those things and check it out. All right, so we've got my super high-tech setup here where I'm just pointing the camera at the display here, but it does let me pause things and go back and forth and scrub through this a little bit. So whenever we're starting, the first thing that I always want to do is I warm up a little bit, high knees, butt kickers back behind you, just to stretch out the quads and the hamstrings a little bit. I think we missed the butt kickers here at the start. Yeah, so this is I knew I was just going to be, this was actually before a shoulder workout, so I knew I was just doing this video for demonstration purposes for squat. So I kind of shortchanged the warm up a little bit. And then what I do is I go all the way down to depth. So this is deeper than I will squat, but the idea is proof of concept. I can get down there, I can get my hips all the way down, and really, what I'm doing now is just kind of greasing the skids a little bit, just kind of rolling around back and forth, letting the ankles warm up, letting the knees play around and play around in that flexed position, so that I can, it's a good assessment tool to see, like, okay, does everything feel all right? And then also just get the glutes stretched out, get the knees warmed up a little bit. Now I turn to the side here and you can kind of see what happens. So we're going all the way down. You can see what happens here. We get that max depth right here, and you can see this this phenomenon. They can call it butt winking, which is a pretty apropos name for it. What's happening there is you're losing your neutral spine down in the lumbar region. So now I can squat like this, and I did for years, but it's not necessarily productive, and it's not necessarily optimally safe. So you go down there, and it's the thing about squatting, ass to grass like this is a lot of people can do this and not experience this butt winking. Now I've played around with it a little bit. I have notoriously tight hips and hamstrings. Regardless of how much emphasis I put on stretching and mobility for those, it doesn't really adjust this that much. So what I do instead is I limit my range of motion a little bit, which changes your squat tremendously, because if you go all the way down ass to grass like this, you get a chance to use more stretch reflex, which if you're a power lifter, that's great. More weight, but for bodybuilding purposes, that's not necessarily the most productive thing. So you can see here max depth. There's that wink down at the bottom where we lose that neutrality in the lumbar spine. Not good. So what I want to do is stop a little bit short of that, and eventually I'm going to do that here. I think we'll see it here, and yeah, right about there. So now I've been doing this for a long time, so I know when I'm at parallel. Like, without even looking at myself, I can feel when I've hit parallel. So what you might want to do instead is, and if you find yourself in this situation as well, where you can't, maybe you can go to depth, but it's not productive. You get that winking like I'm getting here, or maybe you just can. Everybody's morphology is different, and not everybody can get to depth, and that's not necessarily a problem. You do want to get, however, as deep as you can productively, and I think most people can hit parallel. But part of the reason why I warmed up back here, down all the way in that stretch position, is just proof that you can get down there. Not necessarily that you should, but proof that you can. And the other thing that you want to do down there is notice where your feet are. You shouldn't have to be holding on to anything. You should just be able to lean forward a little bit and keep your balance down here. And when we're trying to squat and achieve our maximum depth, whatever that ends up looking like, it's important to get your foot positioning correct. So if you go all the way down and sit in the hole like this and get there comfortably, where you can kind of move around a little bit like I am here, warming up the joints, check out your foot positioning, because that's how you want your stance set up when you go to squat. So then we go back to where we were here. So we're stopping right at parallel and coming back up. Right at parallel, coming back up. So now this is a more difficult squat for me because I don't get the benefit of using that stretch reflex down at the bottom of the movement. But nonetheless, it's probably more productive. There's more tension on the muscle. There's lower chance of injury. It requires more effort at the change of direction. It's a little kinder on the joints in general. And so this is all without anything on your back. And now the next step, and what I'm grabbing this PVC pipe for here, is to do the exact same thing now, but with my hands back in position as though I had a bar. Just because this will change for you beginners out there, you people that are trying to learn how to squat. When you lose the ability to put your hands out in front of you as a counterbalance, like what we're doing here, notice the hands are out in front. Well, again, that's the full depth. You can put your hands out in front as a little bit of a counterweight, and now the added degree of difficulty comes from, okay, we're going to squat, but we're going to do it with weight on our back, so our hands are going to be holding the bar in position. So now the next step in the natural progression is then to go back to that same depth that we were just achieving, but with your hands held back. And this is a really good tool just to help develop that balance and help you figure out how to get that weight shifted back and forth. Another, like more weight on the ball of your foot to the front, or more weight back on your heels. Another thing that you can do, and this is productive for a lot of people who really struggle with this step, is to go squat in the Smith machine, because the Smith machine is going to guarantee that you have that posterior anterior balance. You're not going to be able to fall backwards or fall over forwards when you're in the Smith machine. You just need to take care that your feet are positioned, under the midpoint of the bar. So really, stand to the side of the Smith machine and look at it and really see where that is, and track down into the floor and say, okay, that's where the middle of my foot needs to be. Don't let your feet out in front of you, but that'll give you a chance to see, how it feels when your body is put in that position where it's supposed to be balanced forward and back. The machine's going to help you with that, but it's a good little starter tool. So at any rate, that's a quick breakdown on squats. So just verification, maximum depth is not always the best, but what we do want is to be able to hit parallel, and we can get down in maximum depth and experiment with that stretch down there, make a point of your foot position, and that's how you'll know when you want to get set up and how you want your feet set up when you go to squat for real.